Alright, this is Miss Lily again, back to finish up equations of circles. So we looked at how to take an equation and find the center and the radius by just taking, or actually I don't know if we did this, so we'll go through this again. So you know that the center is your H and K. And your radius, or in the equation, you've got x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And can write or you can read it. Alright, so going back to the equation here, we can pick out our h and k, and we know that here on the end this is our r squared. Alright, so in the equation you have to remember that in the equation, because now we're going backwards, in the equation we have negative h and negative k. So that's part of the equation. So if we look back up here, that's negative. That negative is already part of the formula. So when we look at the center, it's always going to be opposite the sign. So h is 5 and k is positive 1. Okay? And then the radius, in the formula we're given radius squared. So if we have 64, we have to undo that. So you think about what is the square root of 64, because the square root undoes something squared. So the square root of 64 is just 8. So for each case, that's what we will do. So this is kind of like going backwards. So before we were writing an equation, now we're taking the equation and finding different things from the equation. Alright, so for the center on this one, okay, we've got plus 7 and minus 2. Okay, remember, h, so it's got negative h. What would make that a plus? A negative 7 would make that a plus. So this is actually a negative 7. And then minus 2, again, the negative is part of the formula, so that would just be 2. And then 324 is radius squared. So if you take the square root of 324, you get 18. And then this asks for the diameter instead of the radius. So if you remember, the diameter is twice whatever the radius is. So 18 times 2, or 36. Okay? Alright, for this one it would be just the same as number 17. So here we don't have a plus or minus for the x, so that just means our x value is 0. We have plus 10, so we've got minus 10 to make that a plus. And then if we think about the square root of 42.25, probably have to plug that in your calculator. That's going to be a radius of 6.5. Alright, so a radius of 6.5, again our diameter is twice that, so our diameter would be 13. Okay? Alright, so our center here, that's negative 6, so I know it's going to be positive 6. Positive 11, negative 11, again, that's going to be the opposite of h and the opposite of k. Alright, this is r squared. Okay, so that's r squared. So to find the radius, it's going to be the square root of 58. And you can just leave it like that if you want. Alright, the last question is a challenge question, so we got to look at what we're given and see what we're asked to do. So it says write an equation, same thing we've been doing, of a circle with a diameter with endpoints this and this. So if you remember, the diameter goes all the way from one end of the circle to the other, and it always goes through the center. Okay, so that diameter is twice the radius. So if we know the diameter of a circle, the first thing we want to do is find the midpoint of this diameter, because that would give us the center of the circle. So remember the midpoint formula. You're going to take your x's, add those up, and divide them by 2. You're also going to take your y's, add those up, and divide them by 2. So that would be negative 24 over 2. This would be 10 over 2, or negative 12 and 5. Okay, so this is the midpoint. It is also the center of your circle, because the diameter goes through the center from one end of the circle to the other. Okay, so now we have our center. So our center is negative 12, 5. So that's our H and K. And what else do we need? We need to have the radius. Okay, so how do we find the radius? We can find the radius by doing the distance formula using a point on the circle and the center. Again, the radius goes from the center to any point on the circle. So the distance formula again. And of course my pen's going to quit working again. Alright, so the distance formula again. Again, midpoint, distance, circle formula, all of these are really big ACT things, okay? I know I keep saying that, but this is all great review. A lot of stuff in Math 3 this year you will see on the ACT. Alright, so the distance formula, we're going to take the difference of our x's, and we're going to take one of the endpoints and the center. So let's just use negative 14 and negative 12. So I've got minus 12, makes that a plus 12. And then I'm going to have 1 minus 5. Alright, negative 14 plus 12 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared, well, let's just write this down. Negative 2 squared plus 1 minus 5 is negative 4 squared. And then remember, anytime you have a negative number squared, it becomes positive. And I can add those together now and get the square root of 20. Okay? So that's the radius. It's the distance from the center to a point on the circle, which is your radius. Alright, now that I have the H and K and the R, I'm going to have X minus, my center is H and K, minus negative 12 is plus 12. Y minus 5 squared equals our radius squared. So if we have the square root of 20 squared, that gives us just 20. All right, I hope you found something useful. Good luck on your assignment.